Jaco Pastorius, the man who revolutionized how the bass guitar is played, and who is, for many, the best and most influential bass guitarist ever, didn't start his musical life on the instrument. Instead, the man who would be the master of the fretless electric bass was a drummer. A drummer just like his dad, Jack Pastorius, a big band player and singer. Jocko was the first of 3 children born to Jack and his wife Stephanie. He arrived on the 1st of December 1951 in Norristown, Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. John Francis Anthony Pastorius III was quickly given a nickname by his parents, Jocko, which transformed into Jocko in the early 1970s when a French-born musician friend and neighbor, Alex Darqui, spelled it that way by mistake. Jocko liked the alternate spelling and kept it. When Jocko was almost 8 years old, his family moved to Oakland Park, Florida, near Fort Lauderdale. Jocko was a sweet, competitive kid who loved to play games including football. As the son of a musician, he was interested in music and bought a small drum kit with money earned as a newspaper delivery boy. His 2 interests collided in 1964 during a youth league football practice in which Jocko's wrist was badly injured, so much so that it eventually required corrective surgery. Jocko continued to play drums after that, but it was far more difficult than it had been prior to that hit in practice. Jocko becomes a bassist. Regardless, he got gigs as a drummer, and in 1966, while still in high school, he joined the soul cover band Los Olas Brass. When a more experienced drummer presented himself to the band, something fateful occurred. The band's bassist decided to move on at the same time. Although he wasn't a bass player, Jocko slid into the empty slot. He used money he earned as a paperboy to make another musical purchase. This time he bought a new Fender Jazz bass. It was during this era that an inkling of Jocko's future abilities began to appear. He couldn't read music, but in 1968 he borrowed his friend Bob Bobbing's reel-to-reel tape recorder and created his version of The Chicken by Pee Wee Ellis. Jocko played all the instruments on the recording, which he sent to John Coltrane's widow Alice, also an accomplished musician. She returned the favor by replying with an encouraging letter. In later years, The Chicken became one of Jocko's concert staples. With his interest in jazz, Jocko also acquired an upright bass, but it wasn't easy to maintain, and he eventually traded it for another electric bass guitar. Later he would become known for getting an upright-like tone on his fretless electric. Something else happened during this period of his life. He met a girl named Tracy Lee, who was destined to become his first wife. After the Los Olas Brass, Jocko moved on to playing in an R&B trio called Woodchuck. His bass playing grew while he was in the trio. His younger brother Rory recalls an exchange with Jocko, who was nearing his 18th birthday. During his Woodchuck days, Jocko also grew in another way. He became a husband and father. He and Tracy married in August 1970, and their daughter Mary was born in December of that year, 8 days after her father's 19th birthday. He found a cruise ship gig for a bit, and his young family traveled with him in the Caribbean. Soon another group came calling a soul revue called Tommy Strand and the Upper Hand. His playing improved further with the group, but he really broke into new territory with the next band he joined, Wayne Cochran and the CC Riders. A whirlwind musical education and growth. He spent just 5 months in the R&B group fronted by white soul singer Cochran, and as he had on the cruise ship, he found a way for Tracy and their daughter Mary to travel with him at times. The couple didn't indulge in any wild behavior on the tour bus. Jocko didn't drink or do drugs, and instead practically lived with his bass in his hands. He learned to read music during his 1972 stint with the group. Band member Charlie Brent also gave Jocko an influential crash course in arranging. Brent remembers Jocko appearing with a chart for the band just 3 days after he and Brent had a long talk about arranging. "It was gorgeous," Brent said. "He was this raw talent evolving before our eyes." Cochran's long-running revue was intense and is said to have inspired the John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd's creation of the iconic comic Bluesman, the Blues Brothers. In 1973, Jocko and Tracy added another child to the family, John Francis Pastorius, and by that winter, Jocko had connected with jazz pianist Paul Bley. The following year, Jocko went into a studio and did a demo session featuring songs that would appear on his self-titled solo album. 1976, Jocko's watershed year. The album showed off Jocko in a wide range of styles, from Latin jazz to R&B to funk. Legendary R&B duo Sam and Dave handled vocals on Come On, Come Over. Herbie Hancock appeared on the album throughout. The composition Portrait of Tracy featured Jocko playing solo and making extraordinary use of harmonics. As the album was being recorded, Jocko made a foray into the rock world after meeting British musician Ian Hunter of Mott the Hoople, and contributed the bass parts to Hunter's All-American Alien Boy solo album, which, like Jocko's solo debut, was released in 1976. America's bicentennial year also found Jocko being featured on Metheny's album Bright Size Life, recorded at the end of 1975. In the very active days of 1974 and 1975, Jocko also communicated with Joe Zawinul, leader of jazz fusion band Weather Report. Upon meeting Zawinul after a 1974 Weather Report gig, Jocko introduced himself by calling himself the greatest bass player in the world. Zawinul didn't bite that time out, but after receiving an early mix of Jocko's solo album, he decided to call on the bassist when Weather Report needed a bass player in late 1975. Jocko joined the group and was destined to add another significant record release to his 1976 watershed year. He played on 2 tracks on Weather Report's Black Market Cannonball and his own Barbary Coast. Bright Skies and Impending Storms. With Weather Report, Jocko extended his musical reach. He was credited as a co-producer on the band's 1977 album Heavy Weather, best known for the tunes Birdland and Jocko's Teen Town. The album made a huge splash and became a gold record in the year of its release. Unfortunately, by this time Jocko's avoidance of alcohol and drugs came to an end. He began drinking and using cocaine. In 1978, Weather Report released Mr. Gone, which didn't receive the same accolades Heavy Weather saw. However, Jocko's reputation as a bassist was sterling. Downbeat magazine readers and critics voted him their #1 electric bassist that year. Jocko's and Trace's marriage also ended in this period, with their divorce becoming final in early 1979. Jocko started exhibiting erratic behavior, evidenced by an extremely rough set at the February 1979 Havana Jam concert in Havana, Cuba, as part of the trio of Doom guitarist John McLaughlin, Jocko, and drummer Tony Williams. The year included the release of the live Weather Report album 830, which showed off Jocko's chops in a concert setting. The year also featured a new beginning for Jocko. He married girlfriend Ingrid Horn Muller in July before heading out on tour with Joni Mitchell, whose touring band also included Metheny. While in Berlin that fall with Weather Report, he played a legendary solo bass concert on a day off. He was at the top of the bass world. Losing the bass of doom and a mental decline. In this disjointed era, Jocko's bass of doom was effectively destroyed. Jocko sent it to Kevin Kaufman and fellow luthier Jim Hamilton in 1986 for refurbishment. Shortly after it was returned to him, again in working order, it was stolen in Greenwich Village. Jocko, who often left the bass unattended as he played basketball games or slept in a New York park, never saw it again. The bass was only recovered in 2007. It is now owned by Metallica bassist Rob Trujillo. Jocko's bassist son Felix had the opportunity to play it on a couple of tracks on the Yellowjackets album A Rise in the Road. It was a bit of a struggle to get through, just emotionally and because of what was involved, Pastorius said in an interview with Wayne Lockwood of the New York Daily News. Trujillo has told the family it can buy the bass for the same undisclosed price he paid for it. In the meantime, Trujillo, who has also produced a documentary about Jocko, is keeping the bass safe under lock and key in a Northern California vault. 1987, Jocko's final year. Jocko started the year by moving back to Fort Lauderdale with his girlfriend Teresa. Although he tried to regain stability, the old demons of mental illness reappeared, leading to many strange performances and even short stints in jail. Everything came to its tragic head-on in the early morning hours of the 12th of September 1987, when Jocko went to a bar called the Midnight Bottle Club, where he was ejected for his behavior. When he tried to kick the door back in, the club's manager, a third-degree black belt in karate, hit Jocko several times. Jocko's skull was fractured, and he suffered massive internal bleeding. Jocko never left the hospital. He had a brain hemorrhage and went on a respirator. His family decided to remove him from life support on September 21st, and he died a little more than 3 hours later, with Tracy holding his hand. Jaco Pastorius was 35 years old. His assailant pled guilty to manslaughter charges, and ultimately only spent 4 months in prison. Jocko is buried in Our Lady Queen of Heaven Cemetery in North Lauderdale, and Jaco Pastorius Park opened in 2008 in Oakland Park. While his legacy lives on there, it's even more present in the legions of bassists inspired to play the instrument in a new way, or to play it at all, after hearing the work Jocko created during his prolific but all too short career.